Hello crazy coders, I am Nitin and I welcome you to our new series which is based on why SQL is so popular. As you know, we'll go through 4 aspects, which is history, philosophy, power and market of this language, and in the end we'll summarize why SQL is so popular. And we'll go through 4 aspects in each video, which is in the first video we'll talk about history, in the second video we'll talk about philosophy, in the third video of series we'll talk about power, and in the fourth video we'll talk about market. So this is the first video, and in this video we'll talk about history, which will be on the terms of who created it, when it was created, initial releases, initial features, etc. So without further ado, let's begin. In June 1970, Edgar Frank Cord, while working at IBM, released a paper which was named as a relational model of data for large share data banks, and it was released in Association of Computer Machinery Journal. And since the release of that paper, every RDBMS such as MySQL Server, PostgreSQL, SQLite, Vertica, and many old RDBMS, which is Relational Database Management System, are based on Cord's model. So Cord's model is accepted as a definitive model for Relational Database Management System. Even though computer scientist Edgar Cord has contributed many things to the computer science world, but his most analyzed and celebrated contribution is its relational model. And to follow up on his ideas, after learning about relational model from Edgar Cord and to use Cord's model, the computer scientists Donald D. Chamberlain and Raymond F. Burns, who also work at IBM, started to work on SQL. And the main reason they decided to design it was to manipulate and retrieve data stored in IBM's original quasi-relational database management system, which is System R, and this was also developed after the Cord's model. Going ahead with the naming convention, initially SQL was called as SQL, but it was then called SQL because SQL was a trademark of an existing company, which was Hawker Siddeley. It was a UK based company, and that's why it's called as SQL now. But when it was called SQL, it was considered as acronym of Structured English Query Language, but when later it was known as SQL, and it was considered as an acronym of a Structured Query Language. So that was it from the naming convention. And IBM did a lot of tests with this model and this database retrieval language, so it see a lot of success. So they decided to build commercial products such as IBM System 38, which was having an inbuilt RDBMS. So that was amazing thing in those times, and it was released in 1979. After this, they released SQL DS in 1981, and now in 1983 they released IBM DB2. If you are somewhat involved in the data science or data analyst work, you might be knowing IBM DB2, which is still very popular in use. And also following up on this Cord's model, one more company joined the kind of journey or war, which is Oracle. In the earlier days, it was known as Relational Software System Inc. They also decided to build RDBMS and SQL, sell them with US government agencies and earn a lot of money. So they started working on it, and in June 1979, Relational Software introduced one of the first commercially available implementations of SQL, that is Oracle V2 for VAX computers, and they earned a lot of money through it. So yeah, in 1986, the standardization organization, which is ANSI and ISO, accepted SQL, and they started standardizing the database language SQL. So going through brief timeline of this SQL history, which is brief timeline of major events. So in 1970, paper was published, and after that Edgar Cord is known as father of relational databases, as he described the relational model for databases. In 1974, structure query language appeared, and in 1978, IBM worked to develop code ideas and released a product named System R. So as you can see, the SQL appeared first, and System R, which was IBM's quasi-relational database, it was again redesigned for efficient retrieval through SQL. And in 1986, IBM developed first prototype of relational database, and in the same year, standardization also happened. And in the same year, 1986, Relational Software Inc., which is also known as Oracle, also released the first database. After that, since 1986, on the regular basis, many standards were released, but the most recent one is 2016. So that was it from this video. Stay subscribed for the upcoming parts of this series. I hope you enjoyed. And finally, thank you for watching. Have a great day ahead.